It's Wyron here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we are on Iron Mountain Pass playing as the Dwarves against the High Elves, and for those of you unaware, this is probably one of the worst matchups in the game. High Elves have a lot of options to crush the Dwarves with, including just mass AP infantry and anti-infantry infantry, of course, with sword masters. They can spam you with bolt throwers, which are surprisingly effective over time, especially given their low cost. They can bring cav, you got to be ready for that. Monsters, of course, all sorts of stuff. So I decided to go for a build that would just straight up win the melee fight, no matter what my opponent went with. So for my lord, I decided to roll with Thorgrim Grudgebearer. Thorgrim does have quite a few things going for him in this sort of matchup. He does have Oath of Vengeance, which is a great melee defense debuff. And one of the important things when you're dealing with the High Elves is that, especially against Swordmasters, you need to burst down that melee defense. You need to burst through their HP, get them down below 50%, so that then they lose martial prowess, and then they generally fall apart. So for that, Oath of Vengeance is great. It gives you minus 27 melee defense. Plus, he does have the AoE plus 9 melee attack from the Great Book of Grudges, which has a huge AoE of 55 meters. So we can hit all three of these hammers, as well as even these biters out here, which is a little ridiculous. And it's pretty serious buff. Plus 9 melee attack, definitely nothing to sneeze at. He also does have the High King, which when he drops below 50% HP, he grants a map-wide frenzy, which is pretty solid for dwarves who have very good leadership, of course. Finally, he does have Stand Your Ground, which is, of course, very good. Now, alongside him, I did decide to bring a Runesmith. Runesmith, of course, a very solid hero choice. He's got okay melee stats, not really what you bring him for. He's got Rune of Negation, he's got Rune of Wrath and Rune, Forge Fire for that extra AP damage, which will be nice on the hammers, buffs him up by, I think, 4 damage, and then Hammer of Carrick Draz, which is a great melee attack debuff, which is, once again, good for crippling Swordmasters. In the front, to zone away enemy shooting, we've got some Miners, as well as perhaps to harass some backlines. And in the back, we've got 2 units of Iron Drakes, as well as Giant Slayers on one end and Dragonback Slayers on the other. The Iron Drakes with Troll Hammer Torpedoes, here to nuke enemy cav, nuke enemy dragons, nuke that sort of stuff, nuke chariots. And potentially, if needed, because the guys are going to push up towards archers, and they'll soak up archer fire reasonably well. And they'll definitely be able to, say, annihilate Swordmasters reasonably well. Now, my opponent decided to go with an Elithanar build. Definitely a little bit of a silly, not necessarily most competitive build, but he's got some Swordmasters here on the flank. He's got a Elithanar already sniping away with his foot bolt thrower with the Moonbow. For his abilities, he only brought the Moonbow, which I don't really think is good against dwarves. I think it actually does magic damage, though it doesn't say so on there. And he's got Darken Disguise, which I think is wasted because it only affects him, and you don't really need that much faster speed. My opponent immediately starts focusing on Thorgrim, which I think is a huge mistake. Once Thorgrim goes below 50%, which is going to take a while, first of all. Second of all, once he goes below 50%, my whole army gains Frenzy, which is not what you want with dwarves. So he's immediately using his 2 bolt throwers. He's got one over there, one all the way back here, chipping away at me, and I think that's a bit of a mistake. As we discussed, there's 2 Swordmasters. There are some Illyrian Reavers who are diving in, trying to soak up some blasting charges. You can see we do get quite a bit of a nuke there on the white lines over here. Well, not nuke, I guess, a little bit of damage. And in comes the Loremaster, in comes Thorgrim Grudgebearer alongside his faithful Beak Gate Guard, and immediately the white lines having a horrible time of it, just getting completely annihilated. These white lines over here taking the full charge, then hit by an Oath of Vengeance and just getting smushed. Fortunately, over here, I did try to send my Dragonback Slayers out to the flank. They're actually getting pounded by the white lines, and I really needed to get them into the back line here against the Eagle God Bolt Thrower. My opponent does have a single unit of Illyrian Reavers there in the back, which is worth mentioning. He also does have a Noble on a chariot here, who I've hit with a Rune of Wrath and Rune to slow him down. Now he's bogged down in place, and he is going to take a pounding because there's this unit of Iron Drakes, and if we watch, you can see those little grenades. They're just flying and smushing. He lost like half his HP in a matter of seconds there. It's really some pretty brutal stuff. Plows through the Iron Drakes, but really, his days are numbered, and as he flees here, he's going to be in some really bad shape. Meantime, Thorgrim is still at over half health, which is pretty crazy. You can see the Troll Hammers, they're just pouring in, and my opponent is nearly getting the heals in, and you can see the Noble there just loses so much HP, gets completely dumpstered and routs. So crazy performance out of the Iron Drakes. Now Iron Drakes shifting out, and they're going to start pounding away at these Swordmasters, where they'll do rather well, despite not being intended for that purpose. Over here, the Loremaster has been routed, and the Big Gate Guard's still in okay shape. Thorgrim, though, getting pounded, but you can see that is now going to proc the Frenzy, and if we look, that is not what you want to be doing. Look at these hammers, up to 63 melee attack on just vanilla hammers, because they've got that Frenzy procced from High King, and it's getting them more damage, it's getting them more immunity psychology, it's giving them charge bonus, all this crazy stuff, and that is, I think, a huge mistake. You can see they're going to be cleaving through these Swordmasters, and it's just brutal. Even my Miners have Frenzy, at least the ones who are over leadership. And you can see these Swordmasters having a horrible time getting pounded by the artillery, or the Iron Drakes. My opponent gets the Illyrian Reavers in here, but I think it's the Illyrian Reavers. They don't have much AP, so against Iron Drakes, yeah, they'll time down, they'll prevent them from shooting, but they're not going to really kill them. 125 armor, you're not going to be punching through that. Sorry to say. In the meantime, the Dragonback Slayer is still desperately trying to get in on this bolt thrower, and my opponent doing a great job here of just zoning me out. This is actually a really good micro. I honestly wouldn't have expected him to be able to keep on top of this while he's microing all this cav and trying to manage all this fight, but yeah, some rough stuff for me. I'm not able to really shut that bolt thrower down. That said, over here my hammers get on top of the Eagle Claw bolt thrower. Perhaps this is where the slip up in micro occurred for him. And so this crew is going to get pounded into the dust by these rampaging, very angry, frenzied hammers. Definitely some brutal stuff. It's not often that you get to see that frenzy in action for dwarves. But you can see PK guard with 71 melee attacks. Those are some ludicrous stats. These Swordmasters do not stand a chance. And this is not something you see very often, and this is why you shouldn't be trying to snipe Thorgrim. But you can see the Swordmasters having a horrible time. They're going to buckle. Now over here, though, my opponent is actually going to kind of outplay me a bit here, because my hammers, you can see they're pursuing Elithanar, but I lose track of him. I was trying to out-micro my opponent over here. I finally kind of gave up and let the Slayer just slug it out with the white lines. I'm like, screw this, so I give up. But my opponent here, while I'm distracted elsewhere, is going to push in his Swordmasters. They're going to get their full charge. My hammers are not going to get a charge. They're not even going to be charging. And he's going to get a huge amount of value. The Swordmaster is actually just going to dumpster these hammers. So, definitely some rough stuff for me. These isolated hammers actually are going to get beaten pretty soundly at that. So, definitely some rough stuff. Over here, though, the Loremaster gets caught out. The hammers are going to put paid to him very quickly, and you can see he falls apart. At this point, it's basically just GG for my opponent. He's desperately trying to shut down these Iron Drakes, but with Oath of Vengeance, I actually don't even know why Oath of Vengeance on him, but with the Rune of Wrath and that sort of stuff, slowing them down, preventing them from really getting huge value. We're able to dive in and just kind of slaughter them at this point. Moonbow going in, but it's just too late at this stage. Even at this point, the Dragonback Slayers will butcher their way through the white lines. Once they get on top of the Eagle Claw, that's going to be offline, and my opponent is basically out of options as his army's going to shatter. And you can see we still had a very healthy unit of hammers over here. And the Dawi take the day, so a bit of an unconventional build for my opponent. Not necessarily what you'll always see or even often see. But I do think that you can go fisticuffs with the High Elves as dwarves. It's a little risky because if your opponent goes with heavy on large or shooting, it could get a bit iffy. It's important to keep in mind, though, that Sisters of Avalorn are not going to do well against Iron Drakes. You might think that, oh, you watch out, Sisters, they'll snipe them. But Iron Drakes with their 70% fire resist on top of 25% magic resist are functionally almost immune to Sisters of Avalorn. So with this sort of build, your opponent can focus your PK card, which is a little risky, but especially with that Frenzy proc, once Thorgrim drops below a certain point, it can be brutal. Personally, I think the best way to go, honestly, against dwarves is just mass infantry with a handful of, say, chariots, and maybe like a bolt thrower or two to shoot down gyrocopters. But my opponent definitely getting some good value out of some of these units. He got those Swordmasters completely mulched my hammers at the end of the game. But the huge focus on sniping Thorgrim, I think, backfired, because Thorgrim ended up providing Frenzy for his entire army, which is ridiculous. And dwarves with Frenzy are not to be sneezed at because they've got good leadership. Did get Trallia of the Miners, especially as cannon fodder. I wanted to get those blasting charges on the Swordmasters, but it just didn't work out. Slayers, they did okay. Giant Slayers kind of munched on that Noble and dealt with the White Lions and the Swordmasters a little bit. Most importantly, of course, the Trollhammers completely dumpstered the Noble, which is always important. It's why I think you want two, and preferably a healer. I would say, like, bring Teclis or Alariel, depending on what you're going for, but pick one of those and roll with it, and then bring a Noble. I don't really think Elithanar is all that good in any matchup for that matter, but not in this one especially. Otherwise, but yeah, just look at these hammers, each gaining a chevron. I remember one of the Iron Drakes came close to gaining a chevron from sniping away at the Noble, so definitely some brutal stuff. For my opponent's build, like I said, not the most competitive, but I had a lot of fun. It was a bit of a silly matchup from both sides. I think, like I said, I think dwarves can go fisticuffs. You just got to build around it. You got to bring those debuffs. Maybe Thorgrim's not the way to go necessarily. Maybe you want to go with the Rune Lord for the buffs and debuffs. Maybe go with a cheap Lord. Maybe bring a Dwarf Lord. And then bring a second Runesmith. Bring a Dwarf Lord with Star Metal Plate for that AoE -9 melee attack. And then bring a Runesmith for an extra Hammer of Karak-Draz. I don't know. There's different options and different ways to take this match, I think. But regardless, I think it's viable. Regardless, good game to Athos here. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you found it entertaining and hopefully a little fun. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe below to keep up with additional content. If you have any comments, any criticism, anything of that sort, be sure to post down below, and I'll do my best to respond as soon as I can. As usual, I do appreciate you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Wyvern out.